Well, we are back with a podcast episode, and it's been a while since I recorded any podcasts. I think the last one that I uploaded was a few months ago, because all kinds of stuff happened. I took a plane to the other side of the world, then I decided to fall and break my ribs, and I became a hermit for 6 weeks. And now I'm back with one of my best friends, my dragon buddy, Alexis, or Iris, as some people also know her. And I've been on her podcast twice now, or three times, I think. And we've talked about all kinds of stuff, the feminine Christ. We've talked about dragons. We talk about just our experience being on a spiritual journey as a woman in today's world. So,
And as a
for the
mother.
people, that don't know Alexis, introduce yourself.
Oh gosh, I knew you were gonna say, I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, oh, how do I describe myself? Um, I guess in the most seamless way, I would consider myself a multidimensional mother of the rose. I am both a physical mother and a non-physical mother, or a metaphysical mother, maybe. My devotion is to the Kemetic Gnostic mysteries, daughter of Hathor and Melchizedek, dragon mom, and Reiki priestess. So, I mean, I do a lot of energy work and initiation and like soul activation with people. So it's so hard to describe.
And it's constantly shifting too. Like, I feel when people ask me to introduce myself, what I'm going to say today is not going to be the same thing that I may have said 6 months ago or that I'm going to
Right.
say next year. We're constantly growing.
Yeah, well, I mean, like when I started out, I started reading tarot and um thank you, RJ. And doing Reiki. And that's what I was for so long. And astrology. I did tarot, Reiki, and astrology. Those were like my three pillars. And then as I got deeper into this, I was like, wait, I'm also really good with sound healing. And I started, doing guided meditations for tarot readings. Like I would do a tarot reading and I'd be like, okay, well, now you actually need like an integration phase of what I have just told you. So I would, start like Grace, no. I would start recording like deeper integration spaces for them to receive the activation. And then I um I just like I got in it and everything unfolded. And what even is in it, actually? I have no idea other than I went to Peru and the Pleiadians were like, hey, we are
Hey,
your family. I went to Peru and my whole life blew up. I went to Peru and the Pleiadians were literally like, you will never go back to your home the way that you think you will. You have to go home, you have to destroy everything, and you have to begin again. And I was like, okay. And I still feel like I'm in the beginning. That was in 2018. So what year are we in? 2024. I guess it was 2019, actually. So 5 years. 5 years later, I still feel like I'm in this beginning. Like, what am I? I have no idea. Does that, I
yeah.
don't even know if it even like, I don't even know if you ever define yourself.
I think the moment that you have found out who you are, you're again uncovering new layers
Right. It,
constantly.
it's fascinating to me because like I see, all these people out in the world and okay, so here's an example. There was a woman that I got an ad for on Facebook that she does like business Reiki. That's like her pillar is that, she does energetic work for business people and that's her foundation. And it's like, wow, that's cool. I wish I knew something like that. or like by like that, I mean, I wish I had something so seamlessly to say this is who I serve.
That's your, yeah. And I have the same problem. And I've had other people ask me, like, isn't that going to be confusing for people when, like, a client of mine said, I do healing, but I also do trauma coaching, and I also do Reiki, and I do light language, and I do all these things. Shouldn't I just choose one? And I said, well, I tried doing that because that's what marketing says you should be doing, and it doesn't work, because the moment you try to put yourself in a box, God, I find, will come in and force you to be everything that you are supposed to be.
It's fascinating because, you know, I feel like when I hear someone say that, my instant reaction is like, well, of course, all those things are actually the same thing. Like, you're a multidimensional trauma healer, maybe is what we could call it. Or, you know, maybe you're a quantum trauma healer. What is quantum? It is everything that exists in the unseen and the physical all at the same time, right? So, yeah. I mean, I say that. It's so easy to say it about someone else, and it's just not ourselves.
Yeah, because we judge ourselves way harsher than we judge other people. And it's easier to see the solutions in somebody else's life than looking at ourselves, because we're emotionally too involved in what's going on in our own life.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that's why it's really good, I feel, to have connections with people that are on this path, because you can constantly support each other and be a mirror for each other.
Right. Yeah. It's so fascinating because, you know, it's like, I guess my top pillars are womb work, which I feel like, you know, falls under like the Holy Mother, and then dragon work, and then just general energetic alignment work for people. It seems like everything else just kind of dances between those things. And they also, it's like we are constantly trying to make sense of why these things actually make sense together, you know? And it's like, how do we ever make sense of that? I don't know.
Because it's all, yeah, but it is true. You don't make sense of it. You just somehow, it's like me with the painting. I am a traditional artist. I went to art school, and then I didn't want to deal with the art industry anymore because it was too competitive. So I didn't draw or paint for years. Then I was always psychic, but then all of a sudden I was like, why am I not drawing the things that I'm seeing? I was always really clairvoyant. And I'm like, I could combine the two.
Yeah, I
So,
wish that I had your skills for sure, because I receive the most incredible psychic visions when I'm in session with people. And I, gosh, I so desperately wish I could paint it for them. Like sometimes I find myself Googling like keywords, like how you do your AI art. And I'm like, I wish that I could just take this out of my brain and give it to
yeah,
you.
that's what I've been telling people. Like, I told clients, I wish I could just like take a photo of what's happening in my third eye and just like a copy paste, and you can now see what I'm seeing. And that's why I also started with the AI images, because I know there's a lot of division within the spiritual community about AI.
Fuck it.
And I feel that we train AI,
Yeah.
is what I feel. And because we're going to go through the same thing that we went through in Atlantis, which is the introduction of AI. But the thing is, back then, it was basically misused, abused, and corrupted.
Right.
And we get a chance to retrain it, because if when you look at Arcturus, the Pleiades, whenever I see those places in the Akashic records, they work with AI to make life easier, to make life more valuable. But I still see them doing handcraft. They are painting, they are making things with their hands, because they also value the body, being in your body and using your body. And we have to find that balance. So that was a little tangent. But that is a way to get people to see the images more quickly. Like if I can share it in an AI image that I can make way quicker than I would be working on a portrait for someone, and it is more affordable for them also, then that can trigger their third eye. It's like reverse engineering, and you can trigger the images in their memory by giving
Yeah.
them images that you see.
Yeah. I think that's pretty incredible, actually. Well, I wish I had the patience for something like that, and also that I had the skill to draw. It's so fascinating because, like when I'm in session, I receive such like fascinating images and insights and activations, for clients. And I don't know, it's so interesting to me because how do I want to say what I want to say? It feels like I wish I could make them have what I'm seeing. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes, because I
Like
have the same feeling when I do
sometimes
people's readings.
it's like, why do I get to receive this?
Mm-hmm.
This is like the most incredible visual. How do we give this to them,
Yeah.
Um, wow. But also, I guess the point is that maybe if they received it themselves, they would play it off as their
Yeah.
imagination versus like if I'm like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, they're like, holy shit, I have seen that 1,000 times over, and it's like a confirmation for them
Yeah.
because then they're realizing, oh, someone else can see this. It must not just be my imagination.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is when they start to take themselves more seriously, because usually when we give them, that's been my experience anyway,
Yeah.
when I give them the information, there will be like completely ridiculous examples in there of images that like the other day I kept seeing Pomeranians, and they were in a Pleiadian lifetime with a client, and she had like a Pleiadian version of a Pomeranian. And then and I'm like, this is like, I'm gonna tell this lady. I even made images of these Pomeranians in the Pleiades, everything. And she's like, well, it's no coincidence because she's a dog breeder,
Yeah.
and she said we have two Pomeranians that nobody wants. We have these dogs, and they are gonna be with us. And I'm like, well, I did not know that you had Pomeranians. I did not know there were Pomeranians on the Pleiades, but that's another thing that I was thinking about earlier, yesterday. Like, I don't believe that we managed to create all the dog breeds that there are running around on the planet right now in such a short amount of time. From a wolf to like all these dogs. Look at a pug. Look at it. That did not happen. It didn't happen in the time span that we think it happened, because then there would be a way bigger variety of humans walking around. So I think that some of these breeds were already existing in other star systems, and they kind of sped up the process because they knew we're getting super sidetracked, but it's fine. That dogs and cats, animals, they also play an important role, a supporting role in our mission, in our spiritual journey. Yeah, that was completely unplanned, a little dog tangent.
Well, I think all the animals that are on this planet have come from other times and spaces. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I feel like the whole cosmos has been like one giant genetic breeding program. I don't mean that to
Mm-hmm.
sound creepy or weird,
No, but this
but
is like a project. It's what I always see. I call it Project Earth. And it's like this combination of different star systems, different people, different teachings, and it all comes together here on Earth. And that's why there are so many eyes on us right now from all over the galaxy, because they know, oh, wow, this is a melting pot of all of our teachings, all of our DNA, all of the things that we know. And it's here.
it's really interesting to me because like I grew up with a dad who was very interested in ancient history and also alien lore. Like those were his two favorite things to explore and talk about. And I used to make fun of him, I used to be like, "Oh, you're watching Ancient Aliens again. How stupid, dad." And I mean, I remember like making fun of him. Like, you actually believe that aliens inhabited the earth? Like, you actually believe that we've come from aliens from the stars? And he was like, "Yeah, I think it's a totally plausible explanation." And I was like, "You are insane."
And now here you are talking to aliens.
Yes, that is what's so ironic to me about like my entire life. Because so my dad and I traveled the world together. That was like my dad's thing. He loved to travel the world. And he loved to travel in general. And he thought that it was wrong to leave your children at home if you were going to travel. So, of course, I was his only daughter and I went with him, right? Well, we went around the world and, have done tons of fun things, but we went we went to Belize multiple times. Um, the first time we went to Belize, I think I was, I don't know, 7 maybe. And I remember Belize really well. Like I remembered it so well that I told my dad, like, we got to go back multiple times. So we went again when I was like 11 or 12. And then I asked my dad if we could go again when I was 17, or when I was a teenager. We ended up going when I was 17. When I was 17 and we went to Belize, this was, now I'm going to age myself, 2012, right? So the end of the Mayan calendar. And I'll never forget this because I'm not sure. So I was in a physically violent, abusive relationship with someone, and I'm not sure if my like my I started to have like paranoia and anxiety and like really bad migraines all at the same time that this happened. And I was never quite sure if it was due to the abuse that I was suffering from in the relationship without telling anyone, because of course I coveted it and I protected him from, getting in trouble. Or even my dad. Like, I couldn't imagine what my dad would have done had he have known the extent of the abuse that I was going through. But either way, I started to have just this like really high uh anxiety around life, and I had never been paranoid at that point. But of course, then, this is 2012, everyone's talking about the end of the Mayan calendar, like the world's gonna end. Suddenly I'm thinking we're all gonna die. Like my brain is like, "Oh my God, we're all gonna die. This is it. This is the end." And I'm going to Belize. Like, I'm gonna go to the place of the Mayans. So we ended up going to Belize. I swear there's a point to the story. We go to Belize, and of course we do the thing where we go and look at Mayan temples. And as soon as we got to Belize, one, I couldn't breathe anymore. Like, I forgot how to breathe. That sounds really crazy to people, I'm sure, listening. But I literally had to tell myself, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Otherwise, I couldn't feel like I was actually taking a breath in my body. And then number two, I started seeing ships in the horizon, which, you tell people this stuff as a 17-year-old, and like, how are you going to be received? I have no idea. I never told anyone. I've been wanting to tell this story for so long because, in retrospect, it was like the galactic activation for me. And it was also totally creepy at the same time.
And now you're laughing about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, because like I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had a trusted shaman or
an
I
elder that
wish,
would have been there.
yeah, because, you know, my dad, wouldn't have like put me into a mental institution, but he'd probably have been like, "You feeling all right?"
Yeah, yeah.
But I didn't really have anyone that I could say, like, this is what's happening to me. Okay, one, I can't breathe. I literally could not breathe. Like, or if I didn't tell myself breathe in, breathe out, it didn't feel like I was getting any oxygen in my lungs. It felt like I was going to die.
Suffocate. Yeah.
And then two, like seeing all these ships on the horizon, which obviously like other people can't see. This sounds like a form of psychosis to people, but I was totally there. Like it was not, I was not like in some distant fairy land where I was making stuff up about my life. I was seeing this, activating this, and also completely in my body at the same time, even if I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like I was like doing body regulation. I remember like I would put my hands in the sand and be like, my hands are touching the earth. I'm here. Oh, I feel water on my body. I like went through this process of like feeling all this stuff. Oh gosh, what was the whole point of the story? There was something about the Pomeranian and the galactic thing that
It all
inspired
started with
all of
this
this.
Pomeranian.
Yeah, right. I guess, my I don't remember what my point was, other than to talk about, oh, of course, ancient aliens, right? Like, and these ancient galactic origins. Now, I was so terrified of what I was seeing that it took me years to really open myself and allow them to come in. But it was like that moment where I saw the ships on the horizon that I kind of understood that the end of the Mayan calendar was like the birth of a new galactic beginning. And of course, here we are 12 years later, and I still, again, feel like we're in the beginning. Um, Oh, yes, of course, all eyes on us. Now it's all coming back to me. The reason why I shared this crazy story. It was in that moment that I realized that, like, my dad probably was actually onto something. And it's so interesting how I can look back on my childhood and see, like, I was perfectly prepared for the activations and the codes that I'm bringing on this planet now in ways that I completely resisted as a child. Like I said, I used to make fun of my dad. Now, you talk to my dad, and again, you talk to him, and he's like a normal, totally normal human being, being like, oh, yeah, of course we're aliens, or of course, like we've had alien contact or, alien assistance. But I've just taken it a step farther.
Yeah.
Like
You become
sometimes,
the alien.
yeah, sometimes I feel bad for him because I'm like, am I embarrassing you? No,
And then you
probably
can just tell him, well, you created this. You created this,
not.
father.
Right. Yeah. So I guess like my whole point was is, this like activation happened, and then I started to realize like, oh, this is what came to me. Our planetary body is a galactic hub. Like there are contacts from every known universe and star on this planet, and yet we don't even recognize it. Like that's kind of the activation that happened in Belize for me, was like the realization that all these quote unquote conspiracy theories are completely true in many ways, and we have just been completely severed from the idea that we are cosmic in origin and that we can have relationships with other cosmic entities or deities or, whatever. And it was in that moment that I began to like wake up to people's starseed origins, um, which I still sometimes do, but I don't know. I feel like we're all like playing out like a star system at certain points in our
Yeah.
consciousness, right? So it was so funny because I met a man on the street. Um, literally, he's homeless, and I remembered him from Andromeda. Like he was like a high level Andromedan council member. And I was like, what are you doing on the street? Like that was my first thought when I saw him. I was like, how are you homeless in this lifetime? Like this doesn't make any sense to me because I know you as this like devout high level master in this other space. So like what are you doing here? And I remember just like crying because I felt like he had abandoned a huge part of himself. It's so funny because we hadn't this is actually it happened where we live now, and um I ended up with these stickers. One was a dragon sticker. Actually, this is 4 years ago. So crazy how this is how you tell these stories and they come together. And I remember like running down to the street to him and saying like, you need to take this dragon. This dragon will protect you. Please remember where you have come from and remember who you are. And I just remember like bawling. RJ was like, what is I don't actually think he thought maybe what's wrong with this girl, but he was just like, are you okay?
Strange.
Here I am bawling over this, homeless person I met on the street because I'm in this like serious galactic remembrance. But I don't know. This is how it is. Like people, okay, here's my rant for the Astral Addict right now.
Do it.
There are too many people out there like playing out this like starseed story that completely severs us from this planet, and that's a total sham. Like we're actually all deeply integrated onto this planet and having these like deep remembrances. And it really irritates me because most of these people talking about starseed this or starseed that are really just in some sort of like massive illusion. I don't know, maybe that sounds rude and judgmental, but
No, because I literally just shared a blog about it. Well, not now, a few months ago, but I rewrote big chapters of the blog for my book that I'm working on. That is going to be all about the nature of time, different star systems, how we're all remembering. But the whole point of the blog was you are here on Earth. You are supposed to remember all these things, but you have been so many different things that it would be ridiculous to say, oh, I'm a
right.
Pleiadian. My entire identity is about being a
Mhm.
Pleiadian, when you have also been Assyrian, you've been Lyran, you've been like, I rarely see people in the Akashic records when I work with their energy that are only one type of galactic frequency. Usually it's at least 3 or 4 or 5 different ones that come forward. And that doesn't mean that that's all the galactic frequencies that they're connected to. That's only the ones that they need to integrate now. Because if you would look at these people's energy, maybe in 5 years, whole different frequencies could come up. It's kind of like what
Right.
you were saying. We play out the different frequencies when they are of value in our earth life.
Right. I entirely
Mhm.
agree. Yeah, then that's kind of like where I would like went down with people in the starseed origin readings I used to do for them. I love these readings. They're amazing. I just haven't like put them out there recently, but what I tell people is that like if you show up to me today on, you know, July 25th, the reading that I give you might be completely shifted in 6 months because you either had cleared the karma from those systems, or you're activating a new form of dharma from your oversoul body, if you will. And so that means then like you could come to me technically for infinite starseed readings, because there are infinite ways that your, you know, star expression is going to be activated and explored. And something that I feel very passionate about is just being really grounded in that star expression. um and of course, like, I don't know, I don't follow people that are like talking about starseed stuff very much, just because they annoy me. I mean, I don't know, maybe I
No, but
sound like
it's
a
true.
jerk.
And I'm glad that I decided to ask you on the podcast, because I always feel when I record videos on my own, it's just me complaining. And when it's with someone else, then you're having a dialogue. And
Right.
it's important because I understand all these people serve a purpose. And when I
Yeah, of course.
like woke up to this whole starseed stuff, which was also around 2011,
At the Mayan
2012 kind
calendar.
of, because I remember I made a painting of a ship, of a big type of mothership that I kept seeing in my third eye. I kept seeing it, a gigantic round ship with a bunch of windows, and it was gigantic. And I painted it, and it freaked me out so much that I destroyed it and threw it away. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And then a few years later, of course, they announced themselves. They said, "Hello, we are the Pleiadian mothership. You have been in contact with us. Your Pleiadian version is here on the ship with us." And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. So there was no more denying all of that. But the thing is, that's one aspect of my soul, this Pleiadian version. If I then go hyper focus on, oh, Pleiadian me, Pleiadian this, Pleiadian that, I would be completely ignoring all the other parts of my soul that have wisdom, such as the earth lifetimes, because a lot of people focus so much on these galactic lifetimes that they completely ignore, or they are like kind of allergic to, oh, it's just a lifetime on earth, how could that be any value, that they want to know all the starseed stuff. But like, I have had so much like confirmation from these lifetimes that I've lived on earth that are connected to what I'm doing now, and just like validation, empowerment from lifetimes that I remember on earth that were more human. Like, you can connect to those parts of yourself. Now I'm ranting. When it comes to processing emotions like anger, sadness, grief, often I feel when you connect to other parts of your soul that have gone through all of these experiences on planet Earth, you're going to be able to heal way quicker and relate to yourself way quicker
Yeah.
than if you're constantly going up into the stars.
Yeah. I was gonna say too, like, I think that there's a lot of people who use like galactic wisdom as a form of physical bypassing this experience. And there's nothing wrong. I play in the quantum a lot, but there's nothing like, I don't know, there's nothing more irritating to me than seeing these like galactic people who are like, okay, and if you eat sugar, you are now no longer in your high vibe Pleiadian bodysuit. It's like, what? Like, I don't think my body is here on this planet to be like eaten away at, you know? I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, it's like 𝗗𝗏𝗅𝗙𝗢 once said, like he drinks coffee, and somebody was so surprised that he drank coffee because he's this like YouTube guru, or he wrote a bunch of books. I mean, he's famous. Eckhart Tolle started talking in the 80s and the 90s. I don't remember. I know that when I woke up to all of this stuff, I was really young. I was a teenager. It was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and Eckhart Tolle books were everywhere. Anyway, and he told somebody that said, "Oh, you drink coffee?" And he said, "Well, if my consciousness was that fragile that it could be
right.
completely just eradicated by drinking a cup of coffee, then that would not be a very strong level of consciousness. If it's that easily just like brought out of balance, that's what I feel too. And the funny thing is, there have been moments where I have judged myself for, oh, I drank too much coffee and here I am doing readings for people. I'm all hyper.
Oh
But
yeah.
then I'm not really hyper because, one, I believe I have ADHD. So what that means is that coffee actually does the opposite. The other day, I fell asleep and took a nap after an afternoon coffee. I was exhausted and my coffee wasn't even done, and I go and lay down for a nap. So it doesn't do the same thing. But anyway, because I'm getting sidetracked. So I've done readings after eating a bunch of sugar. I've done readings after drinking coffee and thinking I should not have done this right now. Maybe it's going to influence the quality of the reading, which of course it doesn't. When I choose to be connected to God and I say,
Right.
I'm now connected, show me, what do I need to know for this person? And then I just make my connection, and it never
Yeah.
has an effect. I've never noticed, unless when I'm sick and I have a fever or I'm on medication, like now with my broken ribs, they're now healed. But I was on really heavy pain pills for the first 2 weeks, and I was just completely like, yeah, I can't do anything. I'm just existing. I'm just existing. That's it. And I didn't work because I felt that that would not have been responsible, but maybe I could have done it, but I was just like, no, I'm not going to do it. But food has never influenced my connection, I feel.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of these like really crazy rules. And again, I wonder how much of this is also a form of like religious indoctrination or control. But it's like there are a bunch of rules around food, and I see this not just in the galactic community but in like the quote unquote new age community or in the energetic healing community, where it's like, oh, if you eat meat, you know, before you do an energetic healing, like you are not going to be as effective. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because even if you ate vegetables, right? Like you, this is, of course, a conversation that most people don't want to have, but it takes blood, bones, and feces to create vegetables. So, what's the difference between ingesting it through the plant versus just actually ingesting? Well, you don't want to ingest feces, of course, but um, ingesting the meat or the blood or the bone from the animal itself. I I like am always flabbergasted when I hear these things. Like, oh, you know, if you eat meat, you're not a good healer, or you're not like spiritually evolved enough, or you're not this, or you're not that. And it's like, this is the craziest thing you could tell someone.
Then you're pre-programming someone to accept limitations about themselves.
Right.
And I've been vegan, I've been a vegetarian, I've been a
Yeah,
meat
same.
eater, I've gone completely dairy free, I've gone gluten free, I've done all kinds of weird stuff for health reasons. Or when my daughter was a baby, she was allergic to dairy, so I stopped eating yogurt, cheese, cow's milk. And then I took it a step further and I was like, oh, let's just go completely plant-based. And I started researching all the vegan recipes, and after a few months I was like, well, I feel exhausted, I'm drained, I need eggs again. And I started eating eggs again. I'm like, okay, this is way better. I was way more grounded, felt way more in my body, present.
Right.
And ironically enough, it's when I was eating our own chicken eggs every day that my third eye exploded, that it got really active. And I started washing my hair with eggs because I was going like shampoo free, no
Yeah.
shampoo. And I started washing my hair with eggs. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're just wasting eggs, you're whatever. Well, my crown just opened opened up completely. It was super healthy for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I did the egg thing, the egg hair thing.
Yeah, and it works because a lot of people, they're like, oh, eggs in your hair, but it takes the grease out of your hair and it doesn't put all the chemical stuff on your scalp because your scalp
Right.
is just going to absorb everything. And that's why you can't really see my gray hair, I think, in this light, but there's quite some gray hair in there. I'm like, I'm not going to color my hair because it's just a bunch of chemicals that you're putting on your head. And imagine doing that every 6 weeks, or I don't know, every month you have to color the roots of your hair. That cannot be good for your brain. Your brain is right there underneath your scalp, and all the chemicals are just right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely, if you look at hairdressers specifically, they have a very high rate of cancer or like endocrine issues. And I think it is due to all those chemicals that they're, and of course, like they're not, they of course dye their own hair most of the time, but they're, they're inhaling it all the
They're
time. They're,
constantly, yeah.
yeah, in relation to it. It's just so fascinating. I don't know. Not that this is about, you know, modern day chemicals, but still, I just have such a hard time with people trying to tell other people what to eat. Especially in this work. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's also
Fasting.
like a cultural thing. Because when you go look at Asian people, go look at African tribes, go look at South America, Scandinavia, they all have their own forms of shamanism, of
Right.
spirituality, and they all eat completely different diets,
Mhm.
and they're still able to
Also,
have their connection.
most of the vegetables we eat are a byproduct of human engineering. So I think about this all the time whenever I eat broccoli or cauliflower, which is like my two favorite vegetables. Like 100 years ago, broccoli or cauliflower, I don't think existed.
Yeah, broccoli,
So
especially the fancy new broccolis that are like all pointy
yeah,
and curved.
yeah. Potatoes, of course, potatoes existed, corn existed, beans existed, but a lot of the like quote unquote staples that we utilize at this time are a fairly new bioengineered food product. Like we have, as a human civilization, spliced and diced these genetics and created these things that we know as normal and common. But if we like phoned our ancestors from 300 years ago, they'd be like, what is that? Like, what are you eating?
But I can already tell with my grandma, and she's 87. She has Alzheimer's now, but like 10 years ago or something, she had her way of cooking. And in Belgium, it's potatoes, carrots, like, or some kind of vegetable, and a piece of meat or fish. And I start
Right.
cooking at her house with bell peppers and like zucchinis, and she's like, what is that? I have never seen that in my life. Like bell peppers, she doesn't cook with bell peppers. Like they
Right.
didn't really have that stuff in
Well, it doesn't grow
Western
there.
European. No, so it's not there. It's like cabbages, sprouts,
Right.
potatoes, carrots. That's the kind of food that you're gonna find over there.
Those are my favorite. But of course, my family is like predominantly German and Irish Scottish. So
Yeah, that's the stuff that grows over there. Potatoes and like vegetables that grow in the ground.
yeah. Yeah, carrots, potatoes. I freaking love cabbage. I'm not sure about Brussels sprouts, where like they came from, but I love Brussels sprouts. Now we're on food. Oh God. Deborah and I talk about food way too much
Yeah,
to
but
each other.
that's the funny thing is I have another friend, Allison. She's on Instagram as Atlantis Rising Crystals. She came to visit me when I still lived in Spain, and the first thing we discussed was food. You're gonna be in Spain for a weekend. We have to make a food plan for the entire 3 days. I'm gonna be cooking. We're gonna go out to eat this. We have to eat this Spanish food. Like
Yeah.
food was the whole topic, and she's super psychic. She's also extremely gifted in like astral traveling dream work. she communicates with crystals. She sells and programs crystals for her clients, and then she has like a bunch of galactic connections, and we had the best time. We ate so much good food that weekend, and she's like, I eat everything, I just like to eat.
Yeah. I think by deriving or, denying ourselves the pleasure of being on this planet with the food that we have is such a disservice to being in these bodies. Like, I could not imagine why our cosmic selves would choose to be in one of the most abundant, lush places and choose to suffer in this place. And that's another thing that I kind of awoke to in the early days of my galactic nature was is that this planet is a gift in the cosmos, and it's diverse and it's powerful. um when I guess like there's a form of me that like, watched Dune and realized like that this planet is like a conglomeration of tons of other planetary bodies. So we have everything here, from desert to ocean to mountains to trees, which is not necessarily true for other planetary bodies in the cosmos. Like some of them are purely water, some of them are purely forest or fungus. And we have the blessed opportunity to be on a planet that has everything. Everything, I think, unless there's more. Um, so again, why would we choose to be here and not take advantage of the gift of this planet in our cosmic selves?
Yeah, and that's another thing that we were talking about, this whole starseed hype. It's trendy to be a starseed, and in a way it's nice for people that are awakening to all this stuff, like, whoa, I'm having these spirit guides come to me, they are from another planet, I am insane, let me go online and research. And you're gonna find type in starseed in YouTube and you find just a whole bunch of videos. But there's also this, it's almost trendy or cool in a way to complain about it, to be the starseed martyr, like, oh, I wish I was in the Pleiades, I wish I was not on Earth. And your guides over there are telling you, what is wrong with you? I wish I was there, it's awesome, we are looking at you doing this Earth thing, you are there and we are here. And like Dolores Cannon said, there's literally a waiting list to incarnate on Earth. And I don't know if it's quite that literally, but I can see what she means, that this is an experience that is going to be so nuanced and interesting and adventurous that when you're here, it's going to be overwhelming and you're going to be like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. But you have to completely be here and just go for it and just say, I'm in this body, let's do it. Show me what I need to see.
Yeah, and
And let's do it.
I feel like this is especially true with the deep spirit baby communication that I've been involved in the last like 2 years. It's like these spirit babies, there's like these new earth children that are coming online that are like begging their parents just to say yes to them. And it's kind of hilarious to me because they are pretty pushy and forceful in a way. They're like asking for these codes to be activated on this planet and, be awakened within our bodies that are bringing these babies earthside, right? So something that I find most fascinating at this moment is that there are tons of these like cosmic children looking to be born and to steward this like deep shamanic awakening on this planet. And as you say this, it's so hilarious to me because like as humans on this planet, we think so self-centeredly in a way. Like we seem to think that we matter so much that if something doesn't go quote unquote right in our lives, then we're bad. And but I what I mean by that, like so very basically, let's say you go bankrupt. Then we as a human carry around the story of like, well, I can't, I'm a bad person because I've gone bankrupt or I have nothing at this moment. But that is the gift of this planet, is to be terraformed. Like we are intended to be terraformed and to terraform this planet all at the same time, right? Like that's part of the gift of being a galactic human, is being able to play with these quantum realities and say, well, what kind of reality do I actually desire to live in? Because that's what matters most on this planet at this time, is like that the collective consciousness chooses to create the deep reality that it desires to play out, which is why, we're here where we are in our current cosmic reality. But I guess my point is that these children that are coming forward are asking their parents to completely revolutionize the way that they show up to their lives, and to stop playing small in this game of like self-centered humanness, where we're like, well, if we disappoint our family, then we've done something wrong. If we disappoint, the fucking banks, we've done something wrong. None of that shit matters. I mean, of course it matters. Like we have to have, obviously money and security and safety, but also at the same time, like our galactic story is beyond so much more than if we went bankrupt in Earth in 2024. Does that make sense, or do I sound crazy?
No, well, because we're always, for people listening, like we talk daily, or like we talk regularly at least, and we're constantly having these insights, these gigantic downloads. And then we look around and we see that other people are just living their lives, and they are like oblivious to the fact that there are all these realities influencing our soul, our existence, this timeline. And then we're constantly checking in with each other. This and this and this happened. Am I crazy? Oh no, you're not crazy. And that's why it's important that you have people that are also on this journey. And
Right.
that's also why I started offering texting to people. Like, if you feel like, hey, I'm kind of freaking out right now, I need to text somebody for like a week. I need to be available. Like, I need you to be available for me for a week. Yeah, I'm here. They'll talk about it, and they're like, whoa, it's so helpful just being able to tell you what's going on and not feel crazy. Because when you look around you, and I've really been experiencing this since the end of May and the beginning of June, and I've heard it from a few other people, that Dolores Cannon also talks about a timeline split, and it's been happening since 2011, 2012. We've become aware of the fact that there is this higher timeline, it is this new Earth, but now it is little by little becoming split, it is solidifying, and the people that have really chosen to be devoted to their highest self, their highest development, they're starting to see that they're making these quantum leaps in their life more quickly than they were able to a year ago, 2 years ago, even a couple months ago. And they're like, am I just going crazy? How can this happen? I was here a year ago and look at where I am now. This is something that my parents would have done 10 years. Like, would have taken them 10 years to do what I did in a year. It is because the energy is speeding up, and therefore all of our experiences here are also speeding up.
Right.
I feel.
Yeah. And, for those who are unfamiliar with even my path, I was trained in what's called Star Alter Reiki, from a medicine man, a Sundance Chief Golden Light Eagle. And he talked about the very same thing, like the fact that the earth is shifting frequencies, and we are going to be in a new reality. It's so fascinating because when I have this conversation with people, it sounds really nutty. because a lot of people look at the external world as a validation, but it's actually completely invalidating to look out and to like try to make sense of this, because it can't work that way. So what I want to say about that, or what I'm trying to get to, and again, because these concepts are really large, so sometimes I struggle with like trying to explain them, but basically we are like in the height of the split, and that's why we see all this chaos. That is why we see this like deep craziness that's happening on the planet. Like that's why we see these wars being broken out. This I mean, gosh, if you're an American, just look at what's happening in our political system. I don't I'm not like a forecaster, but I'm interested to see what happens in the future, because it does seem like we are currently in the death of the republic, or in the death throes of the like false government system that we're living under in the United States specifically. um and we're seeing this like massive split, right? And what Chief said to us was is that we would see a lot of people leaving their bodies at this time. And oh gosh, I really like I feel that so much in my soul. And I also feel like it can sound so insensitive to say that, because death is such a taboo topic, especially in the Western world. But I feel like that's kind of why we have seen the craziness of the last, 15 years, is like people are choosing to leave. People are choosing to walk away from this space so that they can come again when they're ready or activated. Um, and so, yeah, like we can't like look out into the world and think, well, if we don't see rainbows and butterflies, then it must not be happening. We are the stewards of this different timeline. We are the ones that are activating this. And also we're like those of us who are having children, our children are actually the ones that are creating this and forcing us into it in a real way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that sounds really crazy to some people. But it's not until you have children that you excavate every layer of your psyche and quantum reality, in my opinion. You can certainly try to do that by yourself, as a single person. You definitely need another person to help you. But it's like your children. It's like looking into the eyes of your children and realizing, like, holy shit, I am a steward of something much larger than myself. And now I have to get right with that. Does that sound crazy, Deborah?
No, because when I was pregnant with my daughter in 2013, I found out I was pregnant. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I can't do this. I don't know how to have a baby. My body doesn't know how to have a baby. But of course it did know how to have a baby. And then you realize, okay, I'm going to be responsible for a whole other person. And she's going to grow, well, him, I didn't know back then if she was going to be a boy or a girl. Like they're going to grow up, and you're going to have to somehow be an example. The choices that you make, the things that you value, are going to influence the way your child sees the world until they are old enough to start forming their own opinions. So that creates the foundation. And it's funny to see now with Nora, my daughter, she's going to be 10. So she lives with her father's family when we are in touch, of course. And how I still influence her every day, even though she hasn't been with me all this time. She's been with me when we lived in Belgium, when we lived in Spain, and then she moved to Arizona to her father. And well, the foundation was there. We talk every day, and she values a spiritual experience just as much as I do, because it's how she grew up, and that's what she chose. She chose to be born in an environment that would support her when she started talking about angels and about all this stuff, because she started talking about it when she was 18 months old. The moment that she could speak, she started saying, oh, I see this, I see that, I see all these things. And imagine if she would have had a parent that was like, oh, you're imagining something, that's not real. She would have immediately been invalidated, felt like she was crazy. And now she can dream, and she is like completely blown away when I tell her, oh, not everyone can dream the way that you do. And she says, oh, I can just stop my dream and start again the next day where I left off the day before. So she's lucid dreaming, and she's just doing it effortlessly at the age she was doing it when she was 6 and 7 years old. I said, well, nobody, like, I don't know anyone that can just start their dreams where they, like a movie, and just press play and continue where you left off the night before. And she's like, what? I thought that was normal.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. They are definitely, because I see it too when I do readings for children, and I've done channeling sessions for kids. How, like, if I look at my childhood and the kids in my class, like, kids now are completely different. They are so much more open or aware of their multidimensional nature than the average child in elementary school in the 80s or 90s when I was in school.
Yeah, which is why it's so insidious that we have this like mass push to just like put distracting technology in front of these children. Like, if that's not a part, and again, this has nothing to do with screen time. I think that because we're on screens, because we're like doing work on our phones and our computers, we can't eradicate screen time with our children, but we have to be able to curb or teach them like good discipline with screens, right? So my point is that, like, I think this is the most insidious thing about putting children in front of screens without any form of discipline or boundary on how to interact with these things, because these children are extremely gifted and powerful, and what they're like being stolen from in that way. And maybe that sounds really hardcore, or like,
I was gonna just take it even further. I was gonna be like, I actually believe there is, and you can call me dramatic, but I believe it is. There are certain groups of people that would benefit from keeping children dumb, because they
yes,
know what kind of souls are entering the planet. They
yeah,
know if we fully let these
split,
children grow up to be like grow up in their full potential, that they are in danger. Their whole structure that they have, comfort, like they have this comfort, this system that they built for themselves, that is nice, that is like educational system, banking system, health system, like nobody questions them, they can do what they want. But if I look at my daughter now, and her friends, like the conversations that she tells me that she has with her friends, and the way I could hear her talking to her friends when she was still going to school, when we lived in Belgium together, they were not the kind of conversations that kids were having when I was in school. They were thinking about stuff, they were questioning stuff. And she especially was like, why are we supposed to do things this way? This makes no sense. This makes no sense. Like,
right,
if we would talk back to the teacher or to our parents in the 90s, it would be like, why are you talking back? Don't talk back. My daughter's like not impressed. She's like,
right,
why? I'm just trying to have a conversation with you, and I want to understand. And she will not give up. She's like, no, because I'm trying to understand how this works and it makes no sense.
right,
Explain it. So if they're confronting you with your own like they're confronting you with the system and with a lot of things that are just not working. And when they grow up, my rant is almost over, I promise. So imagine if all these now 10-year-olds are 30 in 2 decades, how they're going to be influencing the system. And if you can distract them, and you can distract them with stupid TikTok videos of whatever, or like hyper cartoons, you can distract them with all this stuff. You can try to distract them, I think, but the consciousness level of the planet is rising in such a way that the DNA that's in these children is going to get activated regardless of the distraction tactics that they are trying to put in place. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it.
I was just gonna say too, like I have a friend here. So I have a friend whose daughter was born on the same day as my son, just 2 hours after my son. So like we were like instantly like, oh, our children are born on the same day. We were in the birth portal at the same time. Like that's special, I think, we think. And anyway, her daughter is a freaking powerhouse. Like she does not give a shit. Like if you piss her off or if you do something she does not like, she will tell you. And it was so funny because we sometimes like go to play groups together and of course like have our crazy mom chats because we feel like some of the only
crazy mom chats.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like we look at sometimes we look out into the like mom groups and we're like, we're not like them. We're like we are just I don't know how to I think you know how I'm trying to explain it. It's like we think a little bit differently or like a little deeper or more galactic than some of the other moms in the mom groups. Anyway, so we like get together and we're like hee we talk about our crazy shit and you know let our children play and whatever. Anyway, the point is that I went to a play group a couple weeks ago and this boy made her daughter mad. So she turned around and she said, "Stop it. You can't do that to me." And I was like, "You go, girl." He didn't listen to her. So she went to his mom and told his mom, "He's not listening to me."
Shaming the mother?
Yeah, well, she was like, you know, asking in her own way, she was asking for her this mom to like take control of the situation. And I was like, I turned to my friend and I was like, "Good for your daughter. I'm proud of her. Like, I love this for her." And she goes, "Yeah, it's a nightmare for me because then I get it at home." And I was like, "Yeah, but think about how much we do this to our partners or like the people around us, and we're shamed for it. Like, you get to create a sacred foundation for your daughter to learn how to take her natural inclination to stand up for herself and defend what she believes to be sacred and true, and do it in a way that is respectful for herself and other people around her." I was like, that is a freaking gift. Like, we didn't get that opportunity as children. Like, no one allowed us to talk back to our parents. No one allowed us to create space and create boundaries for ourselves and to tell our parents that we were disrespected by them. Like, that is a gift to your daughter. Like, imagine the world that she's going to live in because she feels comfortable with being able to express herself in that way. And she was like, "I know, it's just hard." And I'm like, "Of course it is." Because you're forced to look at all the ways that you were disrespected, put down, and denied your autonomy with your parents. And that's really difficult work. Like, it's just how it is, you know? I think about this a lot with my own toddler because fuck, it is hard when you're like trying to disengage yourself from these like structures that have just been passed down from generation to generation. It's like, okay, how do I be nurturing to their autonomy while also being the authority? Still figuring it out. I have hard days, I have bad days, and it's just like these are the souls that are truly stewarding this timeline, like this higher dimensional frequency that we're going into, because they're already walking in with it and they're forcing us to claim it for them. Magic.
Yeah. And I can kind of feel how we did that a little bit with
Yes,
our parents,
of course.
but still we were kind of in the middle. Like
Mhm.
as children, we still really tried to fit into the system, and we resisted our true nature for so long that often we had to go through some kind of catalyst event in early adulthood, which made us see where we were not honoring our soul.
Right.
And the children, they're just doing it right away. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, I don't like this, so I don't see why I should follow your made up rules. They make no sense.
And I think, like, I want to create a whole podcast episode on this specifically, but I think this is why, like, the free birth revolution is happening at this time. Like, this is why I think that a lot of these souls, like, okay, so, you know, for those of you who aren't part of the free birth world, if you will, there's like this split between, you know, being told that like free birth is trendy because of Instagram. But what I'm actually discovering from the women that I'm serving is that these souls are specifically asking their mothers for free birth. It's not like they're just, you know, oh, I saw free birth on Instagram, now I'm going to choose that. Like the actual spirits of these babies are telling these women, this is how I need you to bring the earth side. And that is such a request of sovereignty and autonomy and catalysm for the souls that are being born and the mothers specifically. So I totally agree with you that like they're just choosing it. Like I think that that's again why they're choosing, you know, to have these experiences. And if anyone here is listening and they of course, you know, had, I'm sorry, I feel like I have to say this, like a horrific childbirth in the hospital or, you know, with a licensed midwife, that doesn't mean that your child didn't choose or like is not some new earth guru or, you know, light being,
Mm-hmm.
but that was also a part of the catalyst to awaken you as a mother and a woman and, you know, a steward of this child. Because even that form of debilitation or trauma is a catalyzing event for a mother and her child to realize like they have to do something differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if you look at like the 80s, because I had a conversation with my mom when I was pregnant with my daughter, because I was making all different choices. Like, and she was confronted with, oh, you're doing everything differently. Like, that's completely different from how I did things. And she was curious and she was genuinely open. And she said, wow, that's interesting. Send me documentation about breastfeeding, send me documentation about natural birth, send me all of that stuff. And it's because they also grew up in a time where, oh, you listen to the doctor because the doctor knows best and all that stuff. And then she saw how I breastfed my daughter for 2.5 years. And basically, I just let her do her thing. And she grew up very healthy, very confident. And like people are like, oh, but she's going to not want to sleep on her own if you keep her in your bed, if you breastfeed her till she's like 2 or 3 years old. No, she eats everything. She loves eating. She's super independent. None of that has any effect on it's the child is gonna decide. There's no 16-year-old that still wants to breastfeed. Like, no, they're gonna want actual food. It doesn't happen.
Unless you're a
But
boy.
yeah, but that's like different. But you know what I mean. But what I'm
Unless you're a
saying,
husband.
so these children, they decide that they're going to do things differently, and it begins with birth. It begins with how they are already communicating to you in the womb. Like, you know, your children are communicating to you. And that doesn't mean that our parents did something wrong or, oh, that they failed or something because they had a hospital birth or something. That was
Right.
all part of the divine plan. It was all
Right.
part of the life plan that they chose.
Yeah. And, you know, I feel like we had to have the polarizing experience of going all the way one way and then coming back, because it's so fascinating. Like, I saw a post the other day where a doctor, a pediatrician, told this woman that she should be giving her 2-month-old water. Like, you don't give a 2-month-old water.
2-month-old?
Yes, that can kill them. Like,
That's
so
crazy.
how, like, you can't even really trust them, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe for some people that sounds crazy, but like, the insane thing to me about doctors is that unless they specialize in certain areas, they don't actually know about like cellular knowledge or biology, like basic human biology. And most doctors or like obstetricians have no idea about natural birth. They're not
No.
taught natural birth because natural birth doesn't follow their timeline or what they suggest in medical school. And it's so fascinating because if you just go up and look at birth patents, you can find some really crazy technology that has been suggested by doctors. Like, one of them is like a spinning table, okay, to try to assist the baby out. A spinning table.
I feel they make things more complicated, like to make things easier. They're trying to make it more complicated. And that reminds me of this funny thing that I saw yesterday on Facebook. Somebody had posted a meme, and it was like a speculum, like the thing that the gynecologist uses.
Right.
And they posted a picture, and the caption was, if you're a man and you don't know what part of the car this is, and you're not really that into cars. And a bunch of men like, what is that? I've never seen that. What kind of device is that? Blah, blah, blah. And women were all like, well, that's what they put in our vagina. And all these guys, what? In shock? Like, are you serious? That's what the doctor puts in you? Like when you go to a gynecologist, that's abuse. That they were all in shock. And women are like, no, this is what it's like to be a woman.
No, it is abuse. Like, that
Yeah,
is true.
Yeah, but it's like they were so in shock, and women are like, yeah, this is what we go through. This is womanhood.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. Like,
No,
that's like
of
the
course
crazy
not.
part about all of this is like, that's like where I feel like we are coming back from this like polarization of like, oh, okay, we they did a pretty good job at indoctrinating a couple generations just into this system that they didn't even question. Like, oh, your daughter
Yeah.
is menstruating, now you get to take her into the gynecologist and do a pap smear. Oh, and by the way, you should probably do a pap smear every 6 months to a year. And then I remember they changed it and they were like, actually, you don't have to do it unless you're sexually active or every so many so many months or years or whatever. And I had the worst gynecologist ever. Like, I remember this is a funny story, but I wanted to be in the FBI. I was raised by a cop. Okay. So a cop that loved history and ancient aliens. And so I was like, I'm gonna go work for the FBI. I want to be I want to be a profiler. That's what I wanted when I was a child. And I told my gynecologist that, and she told me that I was going to have to lose some weight and get in shape if I really wanted to be that. I was a 16-year-old girl who swam semi-professionally for a college or a community college and my high school team. I was in the water for at least 4 hours a day training. Like, how much skinnier could I have gotten? I was like, how much more in shape can I get at this point? Like, I'm literally working out 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. I probably ate 4,000 calories, but I had to because, of course, I was, working out so heavily. But I remember like thinking, fuck this woman. And I never went back. I just never went back. I've never seen a gynecologist since because I was like, if this is how they treat you when they're like staring into your most intimate space, I'm not doing this. I can't. But of
It's like
course,
when I had an IUD. because I was trying to find a form of birth control that was going to be hormone free. And I was like, okay, I'll get a copper IUD. And I kept feeling it. I felt it. And I kept telling this guy, like, I can feel it. No, that's not possible. You're not supposed to feel it, the doctor.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm feeling it. And I feel the thing in my womb. I feel it. Well, nobody feels it. You're not supposed to feel it. I'm like, well, I'm feeling it. I don't care what you say. I'm feeling it in there. So, okay, it's in there. And I feel it in
Of
my body.
course.
And then what happened? My body rejected it and it expelled it because it felt it and it was, I don't know, it didn't want it there. So
Right.
it came out with my period because I already had heavy bleeding. And all of a sudden, I went from 6 days to 9 to 10 days of having a period. I'm like, this is insane. 9 to 10 days of bleeding every month. And then it came out, and all of a sudden, my period is now 5 days long. It's 5 days, and it's like barely anything. The last 2 days, it's barely anything.
Yeah, I think that women that are in tune with their wombs will feel an IUD inside of them because it is a literal foreign object
Mm-hmm.
that is inside the body that the body doesn't even want there. And so it's such a form of gaslighting for a doctor to say, like, oh, you shouldn't be able to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, as a womb worker, I think that you should be able to feel everything. I find it to be completely disillusioned or like chaotic that people can't feel even their heartbeat inside of themselves. It's just not right. It's just not being in a body.
No, and that's also the thing. You're basically constantly, I'm going on a small rant, being gaslighted about being a woman in this world. Because I have clients and they're like, okay, I'm starting my business, a spiritual business, intuitive business, whatever. And they're trying to take this program that they know that they grew up in of, oh, I have a schedule. This day I do this day I do this, blah, 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 blah. And then they go and punish themselves because they were not able to complete their entire schedule a week before their period because they were exhausted. And then
Right.
they get to work a whole bunch. They're super happy. They're super productive the week leading up to ovulation. And they tell me, why can't I stick to my schedule? And I said, have you been paying attention to your cycle? Do
Mm-hmm.
you work with your 4 different phases of your monthly cycle? And they're like, what
Right.
are you talking about? Because no one ever told them that they should have a whole different schedule. They should not be trying to implement a masculine, rigid schedule into their month. And that's why I will try to plan my work week by week. But if I try to make a schedule for the whole week, this day I have to do this day I have to do this, I have to do this, that's a great way as a woman to completely punish yourself every day.
Yeah,
I
for
feel.
sure. I totally agree. I think that like women have to become deeply educated on their menstrual cycle, especially in the new earth consciousness, because it's not going to work. It's just simply not going to work. Actually, I believe that to be true about not just women, but men as well. Of course, they have, a different rhythm that they're working under, but I don't believe that moving into where we're going, the 9 to 5 schedule is going to be the norm. It's almost biologically impossible for a human to sustain a 9 to 5 schedule. And it's actually an incredible feat and show of human resilience that we have somehow catered to this since the Industrial Revolution. Like it genuinely shows how resilient the human body is. But look at like what it's done to us. It's deteriorated us for generations. We wonder why a lot of people have, autoimmune disease or like other physical ailments or disorders at this time. And I actually believe that it is due to the deterioration, the slow deterioration of the human body from generation to generation. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy on that, but it doesn't seem like it seems like the Industrial Revolution, and probably in part maybe the farming revolution kind of contributed to this, But at least in a farming revolution, the the farmers were like in community with each other. It wasn't like there was just one farmer and that was it. It was a whole household of people that handled this versus one or two people in the nuclear family doing this. Does that make sense? Does that
Yeah.
sound crazy?
No, I see that the fact that we are both constantly asking each other, is this crazy? Do I sound crazy? That just confirms how we have grown up in a society that brainwashes us from the moment that we enter it. That the moment that we go to school, we are programmed with, this is the structure of this world. This is how you are going to behave if you're gonna navigate in this reality. So when you find something that works better for you, that is completely different, then you're going to think you're the crazy one because nobody else is doing that. So, oh, maybe I'm weird. Maybe there's something wrong with me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We need a whole
Yeah,
episode on this.
that's the thing. Because I was going to say, we're probably going to wrap it up here in a little bit because we've been talking for, I think, about an hour and a half. But
RJ's ready to eject me at this point.
Oh, well, yeah, because we can keep on talking and talking. And
Oh,
that's
he
why
knows.
when yesterday, when Alexis said, what are we going to talk about? I said, we can talk about 5 million things. So let's just see what comes out. Let's just see. And we can always do another one.
Amen.
Because we didn't even talk about dragons. But if we get started on the dragons now,
Yeah,
then
we'll
RJ is gonna be really angry. So
you'll have to make him his own bread pudding if that
yes.
happens.
Yes, for everyone listening, apparently I'm a very good baker and cook. No, that is true. I do like to bake and cook. It is a fun earth thing to do. That's why food is amazing. Like if you're listening and you're on a spiritual journey, go eat something, like have fun, eat, enjoy cooking, do some earth stuff, connect with your earth body, connect with vegetables, fruits, all the earth stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
RJ and I are gonna go live out our Syrian lifetime on the lake right now.
Oh, well, that sounds great too. Yeah, and also for people listening, if you want to get in touch with Alexis, you want to see all the things that she has to offer, because she also does, we didn't even talk about the dragons. She does a bunch of amazing stuff with the dragons.
We'll have a part 2.
Yeah, we'll have to talk. Well, just go follow her. All her information will be in the description of this podcast, and
Yes,
we will be back.
and so for those of you who don't know, I'm moving everything from Two Roses Healing to the Dragon Rose Temple, and someone actually bought this domain. And I emailed them. I asked them if I could buy it from them, and it's finally available in September. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll be able to. It's so crazy. Of course, most people probably don't know this. I'm actually due with a baby in September, so it's fairly funny to me that I feel like I'm birthing both of these things at the same time. Like I finally get to move everything over to the Dragon Rose Temple as I'm bringing this new Earth baby Earthside.
Yep, it's a time for new beginnings.
Amen. So yeah, it's just funny because like the whole point of me saying this is that if this is up within the next 3 or 4 weeks, or 1 to 3 weeks, then everything's gonna be switched in September.
Yeah. Well, then people are gonna have to get subscribed to your Substack. Your
Yes,
Substack
that will always
account.
be the same. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So there you can follow all of Alexis's stuff. And we will be back.